A sluggish launch, rough idle, overheating, or terrible fuel economy does not always mean your outboard is wearing out. In most cases, these problems come down to simple maintenance that many boat owners overlook. In this video, we will cover 13 easy fixes that can restore performance, improve reliability, and help you avoid costly breakdowns. Stay until the end for the 5-minute maintenance trick that could save you from your most expensive repair. Number 13. Replace the water pump impeller. Your outboard doesn't have a radiator. It pulls raw water from the lake or ocean and pushes it through the engine block to keep things cool. The part doing all that heavy lifting is a small rubber impeller buried inside your lower unit, and it wears out faster than most boaters realize. Those rubber vanes flatten, crack, and tear. Once they do, water flow drops and your engine starts cooking from the inside. Here's what makes it dangerous. You won't always get a warning. The telltale stream might still trickle out just enough to look normal while internal temps are already climbing past safe limits. Yamaha recommends replacement every 300 hours or every 3 years, whichever comes first. Mercury says the same, but if you run in shallow, sandy water, cut that timeline in half. Sand chews through impeller vanes like sandpaper. When you pull the old one out, inspect the wear plate behind it. A scored or grooved wear plate means even a brand new impeller won't seal properly. Replace both together. The parts run between $25 and $75 depending on your motor. And while you've got the lower unit off, check for fishing line wrapped around the prop shaft seal. That monofilament acts like a saw, cutting through the seal and letting water into your gear case. One impeller swap, 20 minutes, and your cooling system goes from questionable to bulletproof. But a good impeller means nothing if the water can't get out. That brings us to something most boaters completely overlook. Just when you think it cannot get better, this appears. Number 12. Unclog the telltale and cooling passages. That little stream of water shooting out the back of your motor is your only visual proof that the cooling system is working. When it slows to a dribble or stops entirely, most boaters panic and assume the impeller is gone. But 9 times out of 10, the problem is simpler and cheaper. Salt crystals, mud dauber nests, and mineral deposits clog the telltale fitting and the internal cooling passages over time. A single mud dauber wasp can plug your telltale port in one afternoon while your boat sits on the trailer. Start with the telltale exit hole. Use a piece of weed trimmer line or a thin wire and gently clear the opening. Never use a drill bit. It widens the hole and changes the stream pattern, making future diagnosis harder. For salt buildup inside the passages, run a salt away flush through the motor using muffs or a flush bag. Regular fresh water flushes help, but fresh water alone doesn't dissolve dried salt crystals already baked inside the block. Salt away or a vinegar solution breaks those deposits loose. After flushing, run the motor and watch that telltale stream. It should be steady, consistent, and arc outward with pressure. If it's weak, even after clearing the port, the blockage is deeper inside and you'll need a mechanic to descale the passages. 5 minutes of flushing after every saltwater trip saves you a $2,000 overheating disaster. Speaking of fluid that needs attention, there's another one hiding below the waterline. And if you think that was the best on the list, this next one might change your mind. Number 11. Change the lower unit gear oil. This might be the single most revealing maintenance check on any outboard. The gear oil inside your lower unit lubricates the gears and bearings that transfer power from your engine down to the prop. But it also tells you a story. Drain it into a clear container. If it comes out as clean, honey-colored fluid, you're golden. If it comes out milky white or gray, you've got water intrusion. That means a seal has failed somewhere, and your gears are grinding on contaminated oil. Keep running it that way, and you're looking at a $1,500 to $3,000 lower unit rebuild. The drain and fill process takes about 10 minutes. Remove the bottom drain screw first, then the top vent screw. Let it drain completely. Fill from the bottom up using the correct weight, usually 80W90 or the manufacturer's proprietary blend. Pump new oil in through the bottom hole until clean oil flows out the top vent. Replace both drain screw gaskets every single time. Those little crush washers cost pennies, but reusing old ones is the #1 cause of slow leaks that contaminate the oil you just replaced. Do this every 100 hours, or at least once a year. And if you ever hit a submerged log or run aground hard, change it immediately afterward, even if you just changed it last week. Impact can crack seals instantly. Now let's move up from below the waterline to something sitting right on top of your engine. If that one made sense, this next one reframes everything. Number 10. Service the fuel filter and water separator. Ethanol-blended fuel is the silent killer of outboard motors. E10 gasoline attracts moisture through a process called phase separation. Water molecules bond to the ethanol and settle at the bottom of your fuel tank. That water gets sucked into your fuel line and heads straight for your engine. Your fuel-water separator is the last line of defense. But it only works if it's clean and the filter element isn't saturated. Most outboard manufacturers spec a filter change every 50 hours or annually. Ignore that, and the separator bowl fills with water that eventually overwhelms the filter and passes straight through to your injectors or carb jets. Pull the separator bowl off and look at what's inside. Clean fuel sits on top, water sinks to the bottom. If you see more than a teaspoon of water, your tank might have a condensation problem. Consider adding a fuel biocide like BioBoard JF to prevent algae and microbial growth inside the tank, especially if the boat sits for weeks between uses. When reinstalling, make sure the O-ring on the separator bowl isn't cracked or pinched. A bad O-ring lets air into the fuel line, which causes vapor lock and stalling at the worst possible moments. This one filter stands between your engine and a $800 injector replacement. Treat it seriously, but clean fuel still needs the right spark to ignite. That's where the next fix comes in. And here's where things start to feel serious. Number 9. Replace the spark plugs with the correct type and gap. Marine spark plugs take more abuse than automotive ones. They deal with higher humidity, salt air, and engines that often run at sustained high revolutions per minute for hours. A fouled or worn plug doesn't just cause misfires, it creates incomplete combustion that dumps raw fuel into your exhaust, washes oil off cylinder walls, and accelerates internal wear. Here's where most boaters get it wrong. They grab whatever plug looks similar from the auto parts store, but marine plugs are specified differently. NGK and Champion both make marine-specific versions with resistor ratings designed to prevent radio interference on boats. The gap matters just as much. Too wide and the spark can't jump consistently at high revolutions per minute. Too narrow and the flame kernel is too small for complete combustion. Check your owner's manual for the exact plug model and gap specification. Don't assume the plug comes pre-gapped correctly out of the box. Verify with a feeler gauge every time. On a 2-stroke, also inspect the plug color. A light tan electrode means your fuel mixture is dialed in. Bone white means you're running lean, which is dangerous. Black and sooty means rich, which wastes fuel and fouls plugs faster. Replace plugs every 100 hours or every season. A fresh set runs about $8 to $20 total and takes 15 minutes. That's the cheapest horsepower you'll ever buy. Now, good spark and clean fuel still need one more thing to run right, and now the pattern becomes a lot clearer. Number 8. Inspect and adjust the idle mixture. If your outboard hunts at idle, surging up and down, stalling when you shift into gear, or dying at the dock, the problem is often the idle mixture screw. On carbureted outboards, this small brass screw controls how much fuel mixes with air at low RPM. Over time, vibration and thermal cycling shift it out of spec. The factory setting is usually about 1.5 turns out from fully seated, but that's just a starting point. Warm the engine up to full operating temperature, then slowly turn the idle mixture screw in, a quarter turn at a time, until the engine starts to stumble. Note that position. Now turn it back out slowly until it stumbles again on the rich side. The sweet spot is halfway between those 2 points. That's where your engine idles smoothest. On fuel-injected outboards, the idle air control valve serves the same purpose. Carbon buildup on the IAC pintle causes erratic idle. Remove it, spray it with throttle body cleaner, and reinstall. If idle problems persist after cleaning, the IAC motor itself might need replacement, which runs about $45 to $120 depending on the brand. A tuned idle means smoother shifts, less vibration at the dock, and an engine that responds the instant you push the throttle. And speaking of throttle response, the next fix targets a part that directly controls it. But the next entry changes the way you see this completely. Number 7. Clean the throttle bodies and intake. Salt air and crankcase vapors coat the throttle plate and bore with a greasy film that restricts airflow. On a 4-stroke outboard, this buildup happens gradually enough that you don't notice the loss. But clean it once, and you'll wonder how you tolerated the sluggishness. Remove the air intake silencer to access the throttle body. Spray marine-grade throttle body cleaner on the plate and bore. Hold the throttle open manually and scrub with a soft nylon brush. Avoid aggressive solvents on coated throttle bodies. Some Suzuki and Honda outboards have a matte anti-friction coating on the bore that harsh chemicals strip right off. While you're there, inspect the intake manifold gaskets for cracks or swelling. A leaking intake gasket lets unmetered air into the engine, creating a lean condition that raises combustion temperatures and can burn pistons. Gasket sets run $15 to $40, and the swap takes under an hour. Between clean throttle bodies and sealed gaskets, your engine breathes easier and responds faster. But even a perfectly breathing engine needs protection from the elements. Here's one most boaters forget entirely, but the next example is where most people get caught off guard. Number 6. Replace the sacrificial anodes. Galvanic corrosion eats outboard motors alive, especially in salt water. Your engine has sacrificial anodes, small zinc or aluminum blocks bolted to the lower unit, trim tab, and sometimes inside the cooling passages. These anodes corrode on purpose so your engine does not, but they only work when there is enough material left to sacrifice. Once an anode is more than 50% eroded, it stops protecting effectively. At that point, stray electrical current starts attacking your lower unit housing, your prop, and internal cooling passages instead. Inspect every anode on your motor at least twice a season. Replace any that are more than half consumed. Use zinc anodes for saltwater, aluminum for brackish or freshwater, and never magnesium unless specified by your manufacturer. When installing new anodes, essentials, do not paint over them or use sealant on the mounting surface. The anode needs direct metal-to-metal contact to create the protective electrical circuit. A full set of anodes costs between $15 and $50. Compare that to a corroded lower unit housing, which can run $800 or more just for the casting. Cheap insurance does not get cheaper than this. Now let's talk about the invisible damage happening inside your fuel tank right now. If that stood out, this one will stand out even more. Number 5. Treat and stabilize your fuel. Untreated gasoline starts degrading in as little as 30 days. Ethanol-blended fuel goes bad even faster. It oxidizes, forms gum and varnish, and those deposits coat every surface from your tank to your injectors. Most boaters think fuel stabilizer is only for winterization. Wrong. If your boat sits more than 2 weeks between trips, every fill-up should include stabilizer. Startron, Stabil Marine, or Yamaha fuel stabilizer and conditioner all work well, but dosing matters. More isn't better. Overtreating can actually interfere with combustion. Follow the ratio on the bottle exactly. For boats that sit longer than a month, also add an ethanol treatment like Startron's enzyme formula. It breaks the molecular bond between ethanol and water before phase separation occurs. That prevents the water layer from forming at the bottom of your tank in the first place. Run the engine for 10 minutes after adding any treatment so it circulates through the entire fuel system, including the vapor separator tank on EFI motors. Old fuel is the #1 cause of outboard no starts after storage. Kill the problem before it kills your weekend. Now let's get into the maintenance that separates weekend warriors from boaters who never break down. And this is where the list starts to hit differently. Number 4. Grease every fitting and pivot point. Your outboard has between 8 and 15 grease fittings depending on the model. Steering tube, tilt tube, swivel bracket, shift linkage, prop shaft, throttle, and shift cables. Every single one needs fresh marine grease on a regular schedule. When grease dries out, metal grinds on metal, steering gets stiff, tilt and trim groans. The shift cable binds and won't go into gear at the worst possible moment. Use a grease gun loaded with marine-grade waterproof grease, not automotive chassis grease. Marine grease contains anti-corrosion additives designed for constant water exposure. Pump each Zerk fitting until you see clean grease pushing out the old discolored stuff. That purge is important. It flushes out moisture and contaminants trapped inside the joint. Don't forget the prop shaft. Pull the prop off, clean the shaft, apply a thin coat of marine grease, and reinstall. Without it, corrosion bonds the prop hub to the shaft. Then when you need to remove it, you're fighting a seized prop instead of doing a simple slide-off. The whole job takes 30 minutes, uses about $8 in grease, and prevents hundreds in seized component repairs. We're almost to the end now, and these last 3 fixes are the ones that separate a rough-running motor from one that feels factory fresh. But the next entry adds a completely new layer to this. Number 3, run a compression test. This takes 10 minutes and tells you more about your engine's health than any other single test. Low or uneven compression across cylinders means worn piston rings, scored cylinder walls, or leaking head gaskets. You need a marine compression tester with a long reach adapter for outboard spark plug holes. Remove all spark plugs, kill the ignition so the engine won't fire, and hold the throttle wide open. Crank each cylinder for 5 to 7 revolutions and note the reading. Healthy 4-stroke outboards typically read between 170 and 210 pounds per square inch, depending on the model. 2-strokes run lower, usually 110 to 150 pounds per square inch. The critical number isn't the absolute reading, it's the variation between cylinders. More than 10% difference between the highest and lowest cylinder means something's wrong with the weak one. A squirt of oil into the low cylinder, and a retest tells you whether it's rings or valves. If compression improves with oil, the rings are worn. If it stays low, you've got a valve seating issue. Catching this early means a top-end rebuild instead of a complete power head replacement. If that already surprised you, this one pushes it further. Number 2, sync the carburetors. If your outboard has multiple carburetors, and most multi-cylinder 2-strokes do, they need to be synchronized. Out-of-sync carbs mean each cylinder gets a different fuel-air ratio. One runs lean, another runs rich, and the engine vibrates, loses power, and wears unevenly. You need a set of vacuum gauges or a carb stick synchronizer tool. Connect a gauge to each carburetor's vacuum port and adjust the linkage until all readings match within 1 centimeter of mercury. This isn't a set-it-and-forget-it job. Vibration shifts linkage adjustments over time, so recheck sync every season or every 100 hours. On fuel-injected outboards, the engine control unit handles fuel balancing electronically, but throttle body synchronization still applies. Uneven throttle plate positions between cylinders cause the same symptoms. A synchronized engine runs smoother, makes more power, burns less fuel, and puts less stress on every internal component. It's free horsepower hiding in a 30-minute adjustment. And just when it feels predictable, this entry flips the script. Number 1, flush your engine after every single use. This is the trick that prevents the most expensive repair in outboard ownership, and almost nobody does it consistently. Even freshwater boaters skip this step, thinking fresh water can't cause damage. But it absolutely can. Minerals, silt, and biological matter in lakes and rivers deposit inside your cooling passages with every run. In saltwater, the damage accelerates dramatically. Salt crystals form inside the water jacket, narrow the passages, and eventually block them entirely. Once those passages are clogged, your engine overheats. Overheating warps cylinder heads, blows head gaskets, and scores cylinder walls. That's a $3,000 to $5,000 repair on most outboards. All preventable with a $15 set of flush muffs and 5 minutes of running water. Connect the muffs to your garden hose. Attach them to the lower unit water intakes. Turn on the water first, then start the engine. Let it run at idle for 5 to 10 minutes. If you're a saltwater boater, run salt away or a flushing solution through the muffs for the first 3 minutes. Then switch to clean fresh water for the remaining time. Never run the engine on muffs above idle. Without the resistance of water, the prop can overspeed and the water flow from a garden hose can't keep up with high RPM demand. After flushing, shut down the engine before turning off the water. This prevents the impeller from running dry even for a few seconds. Do this every single time you pull the boat out, no exceptions. Season after season, your cooling passages stay clean, your impeller lasts longer, and your engine keeps its full power. Do these 13 fixes and your outboard won't just run. It'll scream across the water like the day you bought it. But before you head to the garage, watch this next video. It covers the 7 deadly sins of outboard storage that destroy motors over winter. You can't afford to miss it. Enjoyed this explanation? Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.